Sometimes forgiving someone isn't about setting them free like everyone thinks. What if it's about setting you free? This is the story of a woman who carried stones for 20 years and finally learned to put them down. Evelyn Carter was 63 years old, and her hands hadn't been empty from carrying stones for 20 years. Not literally, but if you could see what she carried inside, you'd understand. Stones. Heavy, sharp, cold stones. Stones that pressed against her chest every morning and stole her breath. Stones that settled on top of her every night when sleep wouldn't come. Her small white house stood at the end of Birch Lane in Willow Creek, Mississippi. It was so quiet, as if the rest of the town was hiding. It was such a small town that the post office and the barber shop shared the same wall. Every Sunday, the townspeople gathered at New Hope Baptist Church. Hymns echoed through open windows, and potluck tables stretched into the fellowship hall, like a promise that no one would eat alone. Evelyn sat in the front row, back straight, hands on her knees. Every Sunday, she'd sing, she'd pray, she'd bring her famous peach cobbler, her best recipe, to every potluck. From the outside, a woman full of faith. On the inside, frozen solid, like if you touched her, she'd shatter into a million pieces. Frozen for 20 years. Her daughter Grace was 17. The dreams she built in her head were bright and loud. She wanted to study marine biology. Even though the nearest coast was 6 hours away, she'd plastered ocean pictures all over her bedroom walls. "Mom, one day, I'm going to swim with dolphins." Evelyn would laugh at that. "Girl, you can barely even swim in the lake." But deep down, she believed every word. On a Friday night in September 2006, Grace borrowed the car for a friend's birthday party. She promised she'd be home by 11. She didn't even look back when she walked out the door. At 10:47 p.m. at the intersection of Route 12 and Oakwood Drive, a pickup truck ran a red light. Illegally. The driver was 19 years old. His name was Daniel Brewer. He walked away with a broken wrist and a suspended license. Grace didn't walk away at all. He'd been drinking. He wasn't in his right mind. Grace never came home, and the door never made the same sound again after that night. The boy's name was Thomas Reed. He walked away from the scene with a broken arm and a court date, on both feet, standing tall, the way Grace never would again. He got 2 years, served 14 months, then he moved on with his life. Grace was in the ground, and Thomas Reed was breathing, eating, going on with his life just like that. That injustice sat in Evelyn's chest like a boulder. People told her to trust God's plan. She wanted to scream. But in small towns, they call women who scream crazy. People said time heals. They were wrong. Time didn't heal Evelyn. It hardened her. Layer by layer, another layer added every year. Grief turned into something darker. Not sadness, anger. A quiet, invisible anger, hidden behind the hymns, the cobbler, and the Sunday smiles. Her husband Bill passed away 8 years later. His heart couldn't take it. Not the pain, not the silence. Evelyn was alone. Alone with her stones. And they had never been heavier. After Bill, Evelyn was alone. Just her, the empty house, and a deep silence where laughter once lived. Pastor James often preached about forgiveness, about laying your burdens at the Lord's feet. Evelyn would nod along to every word. Then she'd go home and hold her stones even tighter, because letting them go felt like betraying Grace. That anger was the last thread connecting her to her daughter. Let it go. What's left? On an October afternoon, before the leaves had even started to turn, the church held a harvest supper. Evelyn was straightening napkins on the long table when she looked up. The world stopped for her for 1 second, and she saw a face she hadn't seen in 20 years. Thomas Reed. 40 years old now, gray at his temples. The kind of aging Grace would never get to see. A woman beside him, 2 kids clinging to his legs. Someone introduced him. "This is Thomas. He moved back with his family. He's been serving at Grace Fellowship in Hattiesburg, a church named Grace." Evelyn felt the room spin. The napkin crumpled in her hand. Her fingers stopped obeying her. Thomas saw her. His face went white. He didn't come closer. Evelyn left. She drove home, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She sat in her dark kitchen for 3 hours without even turning on the light, gripping the edge of the table until her knuckles ached. The next morning, an envelope on her porch. No stamp, hand-delivered. Her name on it, in hesitant handwriting. The letters leaned into each other. She shoved the envelope into the kitchen drawer under the plates. She wasn't going to read it. She couldn't sleep that night thinking about the letter. The clock ticked like an accusation. The clock ticked like an accusation. At 3 in the morning, she walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer. 3 pages. Lined notebook paper. Small handwriting, as if every word had cost him something. Mrs. Carter, I've written this letter hundreds of times. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want you to know I've prayed for grace every single day for 20 years. When I came to, counting the cracks in the ceiling of my hospital room, I promised myself I would live a life worthy of the one I took. Now I work with young people. I tell them about the girl who loved dolphins and never got to see the ocean. I tell them about the worst night of my life so that maybe someone else will learn from my mistakes and make it home safe. I'm sorry, those words are too small, but they're all I have. Something cracked inside Evelyn, like ice breaking on a frozen river in spring. Irreversible and unstoppable, loud, painful. And finally she broke down and cried, not like the quiet tears she'd allowed herself over the years. 20 years of held breath came flooding out. She cried for Grace, for Bill, for the years lost to that cold anger, for the birthdays that were never celebrated. And she cried for the boy who made a terrible choice on a September night and had been carrying his own stones ever since. Yes, she cried for him too. Grief researchers say that if you circle loss and anger long enough, if the weight of the burden takes the shape of your shoulders, you can no longer tell who you are from what you carry. Evelyn wasn't just grieving. She had held on to her pain so tightly that the pain had become her. You can no longer tell who you are from what you carry. Evelyn wasn't just grieving. She had held on to her pain so tightly that the pain had become her. At 3 in the morning, on her knees, she whispered words she had never said until now. God, I can't carry these stones anymore. I thought letting go meant forgetting her. But I'm so tired. Take them, please. She repeated it like a heartbeat, over and over until she was breathless. God, take the stones. Nothing magical happened. No voice came from the sky, but that enormous weight loosened. Inch by inch, the iron fist in her chest opened finger by finger. Just a fraction. Enough. The following Sunday, Thomas sat in the back row, eyes fixed on the ground, not making eye contact with anyone. After the service, Evelyn did something that surprised even herself. She walked toward him, her legs trembling, but her steps didn't stop. The room went silent all at once, as if even the walls held their breath. I read your letter, she said. Her voice was breaking, but she kept going. I'm not going to say I forgive you. I don't know if I'm there, but Grace would have wanted me to put the stones down. She was always full of light. Even at 17, she'd light up a room before she even walked in. And I've been living in the dark for 20 years, holding on to something she would have told me to let go of a long time ago. Thomas covered his face with his hands and cried silently. I'm not doing this for you, Evelyn said. I'm doing this for me, for her, and for a God who's been waiting for me to open my hands so he can finally hold them. She went back to her seat. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. But for the first time in 20 years, maybe for the first time since the night she lost Grace, her chest didn't feel full of stones. The change came slowly after that. Like the coming of dawn, one shade at a time. She slept through the night, for the first time in 20 years, a deep, dreamless sleep. She hummed Grace's favorite hymn in the kitchen. She planted daffodils in the garden that had sat empty since Bill, her hands in the dirt, clay slipping through her fingers, making her feel alive and full of joy again. Grace's favorite. She and Thomas never became friends. That wasn't the point. But one Sunday, without even fully knowing why, she brought him a slice of peach cobbler, set it down and said, Grace would have loved your kids. Thomas couldn't speak. He just nodded as tears rolled down his face. On her 64th birthday, Evelyn drove 6 hours to the Gulf Coast, windows down, heading toward the beach Grace never got to see. Grace had never seen the ocean. Evelyn stood on the sand, the salty wind licking her face, shoes off, and as the waves rolled in, she whispered, "I put the stones down, baby. My hands are open now." Here's the truth. Forgiveness isn't saying the pain doesn't matter. It's putting down a weight you were never meant to carry. When your hands are full of stones, God can't hold them. You have to open them first, no matter how scary it is. Maybe you've been carrying your own stones for so long that you don't even feel their weight anymore. But what if they wanted your hands to be empty? Say these words tonight, not because you understand, but because you're tired. God, take the stones. Trust that open hands hold more than clenched fists. If this story touched your heart, if something stirred inside you, share it with someone who's been carrying too heavy a burden for too long. Have you ever had that moment where you finally put the stones down? And the moment you do, you'll see that your hands aren't empty. They're ready. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, forgiveness isn't letting go of love, it's letting go of the weight. And the moment you do, you'll see that your hands aren't empty. They're ready.